Hi, friends. What a day. Let me start with the most obvious thing that sort of was a big thing that happened today is I re-entered the world of live theater. I was in a room rehearsing with a band, making music, this arranging work that I've talked your ear off about for the last 8 weeks or more finally started turning into sound and rhythm and voice, actual we played the songs that I've been hearing in my head and arranging, and yes, listening to demos, but it's not the same. We heard the actual music happening. It was so much fun. And my sort of, I guess what showed up for me was just how much I enjoy it, how much I love making music for theater. It's such a fun world. It's no surprise, growing up in opera, growing up around opera with a father who made an entire career in that genre. I always joke that because I studied jazz for a number of years, and even though I don't really consider myself strictly a jazz musician anymore, but that was the direction I went in for a long time. And I always joke that if you take opera and jazz and you roll them together, you get American musical theater, which is basically, that's where I've landed. In addition to all other influences in music making their way gradually into Broadway and into American musicals. But be that as it may, man, is it fun to make music with people and with actors. Specifically, this band is a bunch of not strictly musicians, they're actor musicians. So they're playing their instrument as part of we're playing the entire score, and also they're playing characters throughout the show. They're playing sometimes a multitude of characters. So it's a real display on the part of these people of a variety of skills and just all-around facility. And it was really fun. It was really fun. It was one of those days where you're like, oh, right. All of the nitty-gritty, all of the time spent on getting the music just right, or as close to just right as you think you can get it, it's all leading to this. It's all leading to human beings standing in a room or sitting in a room and bringing it to life. And it's really, it's odd almost, because it was my first time back doing theater. The last time I was on stage doing a piece of theater, it was the same show. The previous version of the show, different cast, completely different script. Some of the music was completely different and or didn't exist that does now. But I'm stepping back into theater through the portal of the same piece. So it's almost like 2 years didn't go by. But they did. And what has happened in the meantime, I've talked about this many times on this post, just where I've gone in the meantime and what has become so central to my life really has kind of changed. That was the interesting thing about it being so much fun to be back doing this work, because on some level I'd never given it up, but I had sort of let go of it as something that I need to be doing, I have to be doing, or else I'm not expressing myself. That feeling really kind of abated over the last 2 years as I've discovered and explored and crafted, kind of created new points of focus for myself and new ways of being expressed. That has really shifted. And so walking into a rehearsal room today and kind of, it really was odd because it did feel like going back in time in some ways. I think particularly because it's the same show I was doing last time I was doing this. It just felt really good, and it felt so kind of almost oddly good because I was like, wow, I really do love this. This is really fun. And we have ultra pros with us. Our band is primo, excellent players. They're phenomenal actors as well. I've seen all their auditions. They're incredible. It's going to be a blast to work with them. So that's sort of item number one on my big day, was that reentry. And it happens to coincide with the 1 year anniversary of this video post. This is my 366th post, because the one that I did last year on January 4th was number 1. So technically 365 should have happened yesterday, which if you're watching the numbers closely, you'll notice that yesterday was labeled as 364, but I know I haven't missed a day, so I suspect that I got the numbering wrong somewhere. So I'll have to go work that out, and I'll see if I decide to correct them. I probably won't, because it probably would mean like correcting 200 post titles. But what I thought I might do is give you a bonus post for today to make the numbers round out and to make today's post number 366 and tomorrow's post number 367 as we go forward to be numerically in the right place. I did a video post with Annalise on the day that I departed from Albuquerque. We woke up in the morning and Annalise came bolting out of her room when she woke up and wanted to do a video post. She grabbed me in the living room and said, I want to do a video post. We haven't done a video post in 4 months. I don't know the last time we did a video post, but she remembered, and it was like her departure gift to me that she wanted to do a post. So it's long. She had a hard time letting me end the video post, but but we had a really fun time. And so I thought I might offer that as a way of getting these numbers to straighten out. But what as I reflect on 1 year of doing this, the thing that has stood out the most, and I think I might have said this, yesterday or the day before, the thing that has stood out the most is that my inner life is not it's not only about me. In other words, I'll often show up to this post and have kind of only a very vague idea of what I'm saying or what I'm, like if I show up and I haven't really, sometimes I have an idea and I know, okay, today this insight is resonating with me. That's what I'm going to do my video post on. Many days that doesn't happen. Many days I show up and start the process of becoming centered and speaking from the space that I know is the kind of core of inner work or spiritual practice or whatever you want to call it, just a kind of center, that central column of our consciousness, and stuff comes out that I don't know where it's coming from or why I'm saying it. And so often I've had people, many of you, reach out and say, Robin, this really resonated with me. This really moved me. This gave me the key I needed to unlock some dilemma in my life, whatever the feedback is. And so that has affirmed something that I have intuited throughout the process, which is that what's coming through me is not, it's not about me. It's not strictly about me. It's of course also very personal to me, and it's very related to my life, but I'm always encouraged, and I feel affirmed when what's coming through me is actually really kind of not about me, and and I don't even know what I'm doing. I don't even know how I'm serving, and I think that's one of the most profound lessons I can receive from anything, is that the spirit of service, the spirit of showing up and doing something as a practice, a practice of a certain kind of service, we don't need to know that it's working. We don't need to know what to do. We don't need to, we don't need to experience that it's working, or that we're on the right track immediately. There's a faith built into practices like this, and this is certainly by no means the only practice that I can imagine this applying to, obviously, but there's a kind of sense of showing up and maintaining the practice that inherently comes of service. I think I mentioned on this post a couple days ago or a week ago, I got a letter from one of my wife Katie's relatives on the East Coast, out of the blue. This is like a week ago, shortly a few days before I left, kind of just thanking me for doing the post and saying that it has really created some space and some insight and some encouragement to move on in life. And this is somebody I had zero idea they were watching. I had no clue I was on the radar. And I've received various affirmations, none that were quite so long term. Usually it's within, a couple days or a week or whatever. I get some feedback on a post that I didn't know what I was doing, and then I find out what I was. But even something that's that long term, like, these past several months or whatever, it's like, wow, how incredible, and how great that I didn't that I wasn't making the post contingent upon that feedback. Because when we're asking for the feedback, if we're sort of demanding that the practice give us feedback, how do we know what an appropriate timeline is? Who's to say? Should we wait 2 weeks? Should we wait a month? A year? What's the right amount of time to see if our commitment to practice and service is having an effect? There's no answer to that question. So it's, my experience is there will be affirmation at exactly the right time in exactly the right ways. But there's also a sense of, we're not doing it for the affirmation. We're not doing our practice in order to verify that it works. We're doing the practice because it's what is coming through right now, and I've learned how important it is. Another lesson on this post is I've learned to show up with what I have, because there's a level on which it would be really easy for me to be very critical of what is coming through me, or for me to watch myself and think, oh, my thing is like, oh, you're indulging in your own personal drama, right? I'm just like venting my personal drama to the internet. And that's my own kind of that's one of my patterns around what it means to show up and be vulnerable and be genuinely available, present, and to give something of myself. That's one of the things that the voice says, that my inner critic says, that kind of stops me or defends against that. And um, it's just such a kind of, it's such a miracle and it's such an affirmation to step through that and to not let that dictate what I'm doing, and to not need to be immediately not need to be immediately affirmed. There's a faith building or a trust building that's inherent to a practice that's actually really significant. And I think on the sort of personal level, for my own development, that's maybe the biggest lesson. That's maybe one of the biggest lessons for sure. Is that I can trust. If I put myself in service, and if I put myself into a practice that is consistent and where I know that there's a call behind it, I can trust. I can settle into a kind of trust that deepens over time. Those letters come in the mail, or those phone calls, or those messages come, and that trust starts to be really, really present. It starts to deepen, and I become just more and more anchored in the practice, more and more true to it, more and more faithful to it. So, but that's the word that my dad used several months ago to say, how a practice like this can be approached. It's one way of thinking about it, is you want to be faithful to it. So yeah, happy 1-year anniversary of this post to me and to anyone who's watching it. I had no idea what I was starting. It's going to be fun to go back, and that was one of my intentions, is to go back, now that I've done a year, go back and watch what I did a year ago and see where I was at. I know I had no clue where I would be 1 year from now, and that's kind of the point. But man, how exciting to be here now, and to kind of to have learned everything I've learned, and to be continuing. So, love you folks. Have a great day. Go see live theater. I'll see you tomorrow.